He could hear the roar of the water as he neared the surface, and he knew he had to be careful not to hit any rocks. At the last second, Brenton twisted his body and entered the water at a perfect angle. He felt the shock of cold water as he plunged deep below the surface. He opened his eyes and saw the dark blue water around him, filled with all kinds of strange creatures. But Brenton wasn't afraid. He knew he was in his element. He swam to the surface and took a deep breath of air. He felt alive, more alive than he had ever felt before. He looked up at the cliff and felt a sense of pride. He had conquered the most dangerous cliff in the world. Over the next few weeks, Brenton dove from the cliff every day. He honed his skills, trying new dives and pushing himself to new limits. He even dove from the cliff at night, using only the light of the moon to guide him. But one day, something went wrong. Brenton climbed to the top of the cliff, took a deep breath, and leaped off into the air. As he soared through the sky, he felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins. But as he descended towards the water, he saw something in the distance that made his heart skip a beat. A large shadow was moving in the water, and he realized with horror that it was a great white shark. Brenton tried to adjust his course and avoid the shark, but it was too late. The creature had sensed his presence and was swimming towards him with incredible speed. With only seconds to spare, Brenton braced himself for impact and hit the water hard. He felt the sharp pain shoot through his side and knew immediately that he had broken a rib. But the pain was nothing compared to the terror he felt as he saw the shark circling around him. It was a massive creature with razor-sharp teeth and a hunger in its eyes. He mustered all of his strength and swam towards the surface, trying to stay calm despite the pain in his side. The shark was relentless, though, and continued to circle around him, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Brenton knew he couldn't keep this up forever, and he needed to find a way out. He tried to swim away from the shark, but in the blink of an eye, the shark lunged towards him, and he swam headfirst into its mouth. The force of the bite caused significant trauma to Brenton's head and neck, and the shark's sharp teeth tore through his shoulders. Just when he thought all hope was lost, a group of dolphins appeared out of nowhere. They surrounded Brenton and chased off the shark with their powerful bodies and piercing calls. Brenton was in shock, but he knew he had been saved by these intelligent creatures. He climbed onto a nearby rock and collapsed, panting and clutching his bloodied shoulders. The dolphins swam around him for a few more moments before disappearing into the depths of the ocean. Brenton knew that he owed them his life and would never forget their bravery. Brenton then swam back to shore, bruised and battered, but alive. He knew that he'd been extremely lucky to still be alive despite being attacked by the great white shark, and he vowed to Colossal Aquarium, her eyes fixated on the crystal clear waters that housed the awe-inspiring great white shark she had been observing for more than a year. The Shark Research Facility in Japan was a marvel of modern science, a cutting-edge facility built chilly as she descended into the aquarium, surrounded by the tranquil beauty of the underwater world. The great white shark named Kuro in concern as she observed Kuro's erratic behavior. She had never seen Kuro act like this before, and it sent a shiver down her spine. She decided to wrap up her observation and started making her way towards the surface. But before she could reach the top, Kuro suddenly changed direction and started circling her, its large black eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. Ayumi's heart pounded in her chest as she realized the danger she was in. She tried to swim away from Kuro, but the shark was relentless in its pursuit. It circled closer and closer, its powerful body cutting through the water with alarming speed. Ayumi's mind raced as she desperately tried to come up with a plan to escape the shark's deadly jaws. Before Ayumi could react, it happened. In a heart-stopping moment, Kuro charged at her with astonishing speed, a blur of sleek muscle and razor-sharp teeth. Ayumi was caught off guard, unable to evade the massive predator in time. With a bone-crushing impact, Kuro slammed into her, pinning her against the unforgiving glass wall of the aquarium. Ayumi's head struck the glass, a sickening thud echoing through the air, and warm blood oozed down her face, mixing with the salt water. The metallic scent of blood seemed to trigger a primal instinct in Kuro, as the once graceful shark now transformed into a frenzied beast. Thrashing violently in the water, jaws snapping dangerously close, Kuro's eyes were filled with a predatory's madness as Ayumi found herself trapped and at the mercy of a creature she had spent her life studying. Desperation surged through Ayumi as she realized the gravity of her situation. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she kicked and thrashed, desperately trying to free herself from Kuro's jaws. But the shark's immense power was overwhelming. She felt the sharp pain of teeth sinking into her flesh, tearing her limbs apart one by one. Blood clouded the water around her, staining it a murky red as Kuro tore into her with savage ferocity. Ayumi's screams were muffled by the water, her frantic movements fueled by sheer survival instinct. She fought with every ounce of strength she had left, her body writhing in agony as she refused to succumb to the relentless assault of the creature she had once studied, determined to cling to life until her very last breath. Amidst the chaos, one of the researchers caught wind of the commotion and immediately alerted the rest of the team. A rescue crew scrambled to the scene, but what they encountered left them paralyzed with shock. A ghastly scene before them was one of sheer horror. Ayumi's lifeless body bobbing in the water, her eyes frozen in a look of terror. Kuro was still in a frenzy, thrashing wildly and ripping chunks of flesh from Ayumi's body with a ferocity that defied belief. With a burst of speed, the shark launched itself out of the water, and in one fluid motion, devoured Ayumi's mangled remains in a gruesome display of savagery. The crew watched in disbelief and horror as the water swirled in a vortex of water, flesh, and blood. And just like that, part by the shark, and only her head remained, lifeless and rolling at the bottom of the tank. The scene was a gruesome sight to behold, one that left an indelible mark on the minds of all who witnessed it. The once bustling Shark Research Center now stood silent and empty, a solemn monument to the tragedy that had occurred within its walls. Even Kuro, the culprit behind the attack, met a tragic end, his life cut short by the consequences of his deadly actions. Euthanized as a result of the attack, Kuro's fate was a stark reminder of the high stakes and risk involved in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. The loss of Ayumi, a dedicated and passionate shark researcher, left an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of those who knew her. Her colleagues were haunted by the gruesome image of her body being torn apart by the very creature she had devoted her life to. Beyond thrilled when Pedro asked him to visit his hometown of Guadalupe Island in Mexico for an introduction to scuba diving. With Pedro as his mentor, Owen was confident he would make the most of his diving experience, even though he had never felt the rush of being underwater before. Pedro's expertise was reassuring, and Owen felt excited to take on the challenge. Guadalupe Island was a breathtaking place, a seemingly tranquil oasis surrounded by the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The water was so clear that it reflected the blue sky above like a mirror, revealing an underwater world full of wonder and danger. Beneath the surface, the coral reefs were a maze of colors, from bright greens to deep blues, dotted with exotic sea creatures that could take one's breath away. The currents were strong and unpredictable, and the waves crashed against the rocky shores with a thunderous force that could be heard for miles away. Owen was mesmerized by the beauty of the island, but he also felt a sense of unease in his gut, as if the ocean was warning him of the impending danger that lurked beneath the waves. Pedro, on the other hand, was filled with pride, as he led his friend through the island's stunning landscapes, showing off the secrets and mysteries that only the locals knew. As the night fell on Guadalupe Island, Pedro and Owen joined the locals in a lively celebration. They drank, laughed, and listened to the island's music, feeling welcomed by their friendly community. However, as the drinks kept flowing, the locals began to share chilling stories of recent shark attacks on fishermen who dared venture too far from the shore. Owen's unease grew with each story, but Pedro seemed unfazed, assuring his friend that he knew these waters well and that sharks wouldn't be a problem. Yet the tales of terror lingered in Owen's mind, and the thought of facing these predators in the deep, dark waters of the Pacific Ocean filled him with dread. The following day, Pedro and Owen plunged into the vast ocean surrounding the island, their senses alive with the thrill of adventure. The vibrant underwater world was a feast for their eyes as they swam alongside colorful schools of fish and majestic sea turtles. The waters were so clear that they could see for miles, but the clarity also made it easier for Owen to spot something sinister lurking in the shadows. His heart racing, he saw two enormous great white sharks silently gliding towards them, their razor-sharp teeth glinting menacingly in the sunlight. Owen signaled Pedro frantically, pointing at the two great white sharks that glided with an ominous grace through the clear blue water. Pedro motioned for Owen to follow him, a confident smile on his face as he swam towards the creatures. Owen felt a chill run down his spine as he realized how close they were getting. Suddenly, the sharks seemed to sense their presence, and their behavior changed. They began to move in erratic patterns, as if agitated by the two divers invading their territory. With their heart racing and adrenaline pumping, Pedro and Owen tried to retreat as fast as they could from the agitated sharks. But it seemed like the predators had other plans in store. Suddenly, one of the sharks broke away from the group and charged towards Pedro like a missile, the force of the impact sending him spinning out of control. The sickening crack of bones echoed through the water as the shark slammed into Pedro's back, leaving him paralyzed and at the mercy of the ocean's currents. As the water swallowed him whole, Pedro's life hung in the balance. Pedro was helpless as the second shark made its move. Its mouth gaped wide open, and Owen could see the rows of jagged teeth as the shark charged towards Pedro. The shark lunged at Pedro with incredible speed, and Owen could hear the bone-crunching impact as it sunk its teeth deep into Pedro's shoulder. Blood gushed out from the wound as the first shark joined in, biting down on Pedro's leg with relentless force. The two beasts pulled in opposite directions, tearing through Pedro's flesh and bones like a pair of ferocious machines. The sound of snapping bones echoed through the water as the sharks ripped off Pedro's limbs, leaving behind a cloud of blood and dismembered body parts. Pedro's body convulsed in agony as the great white sharks mercilessly tore into his flesh. Piercing pain consumed him, and he realized his life was slipping away. He felt the cold embrace of the ocean as his body continued to freefall, the only sound the deafening roar of bubbles escaping his regulator. The water around him became a swirling vortex of red as the sharks ferociously ripped apart his body, leaving behind only scraps of torn flesh and blood-stained water. The scene of horror unfolded before Owen's eyes, and he was powerless to stop it. The two sharks were like monstrous predators, unrelenting and savage as they tore apart Pedro's body. Owen was rooted to the spot, frozen in terror at the sight of his friend's brutal demise. Eventually, he regained some semblance of control and began to swim away, his heart pounding at his chest. He could feel the shark's presence behind him, a dark and ominous force lurking in the depths of the ocean. Although the great white shark is often considered the most dangerous species of shark in the world, this is a misconception. While they are the most powerful species of shark, bull sharks are actually more dangerous as they are far more aggressive and more likely to attack humans when interacting with them. They have the tendency to stick to shallow coastal waters and can sometimes migrate up rivers when looking for new places to feed in. Bull Heights and its beaches were ideal for tourists to lounge and relax from the stress of life. Their trip was booked in no time, and they had 2 weeks of relaxation ahead of them. They arrived in Sierra Leone on July 17, 1998. Since they were the type to jump at the chance for new experiences, they decided to go on the cruise. 2 days later, the cruise was set to start at 9 a.m., so Michelle and Roger got there 30 minutes early. There were 10 more people aside from them, and the tour guide was in high spirits and quite friendly, so the mood was good. They had never been on a cruise before, so they were excited for the day to come. The cruise took 2 hours to reach its initial destination, after which they would have some time to enjoy the sights and whatever they wanted to do. Then they had the trip back. The trip to Tenerife was relaxing and enjoyable, as the weather was on their side, and the guide's stories about Sierra Leone was quite enjoyable. Michelle and Roger spent their free time in Tenerife very similarly to their first few days in Freetown, so it was quite enjoyable. The trip back to Freetown was much the same, but something that made the boat slow down was a small shiver of sharks, 3 sharks feeding on something in the water, and they couldn't identify it on account of all the blood in the water. The tourists gathered on the boat's railing to see the shark, as the guide described it as a must-see event. They pressed on the railing, struggling to see over each other to take in as much of the scene as possible. Michelle and Roger were side by side and talking about how interesting the scene was. The sharks were ravenous and zipping through the water, absolutely tearing at whatever was in the water. At the peak of the feeding frenzy, the guide said that the boat would start up at that point to stay on schedule. The boat was turned on and started slowly moving forward, and the guide continued to explain what they would do upon returning to Freetown. However, the guide's words were drowned out of Michelle's ears as she hyper-focused on the squeaky railing, getting progressively louder. It gave way. Within a moment, Michelle found herself splashing in the water in the middle of the shiver of sharks. The rest of the people on the boat barely managed to hold on to each other to not follow Michelle. Roger screamed after his wife and made an attempt to jump in after her, but the guide prevented him from doing that, since the shark would attack him as well, and they would have to save both of them. The moment she fell into the water, Michelle immediately felt the harsh, coarse skin of one of the sharks shred the skin on her back, making her yelp in pain. She flailed her arms in panic as she tried to get to the surface more securely. Normally, Michelle might have had a chance to swim to safety if it was a different shark species in the water with her. But these were bull sharks, and they were hungry. Just as Michelle made eye contact with Roger, she felt a searing pain in her lower thigh, which made her shriek and fall below the surface again. The shark took the move to take the first bite, and was quickly out of the way to make way for the next mouth. The guide and the boat's pilot were trying to get the boat closer to Michelle, but it had already moved at least a dozen yards away. Roger was screaming at them to get the boat closer so he could pull his wife to safety, but it wasn't working out at all. Michelle felt another set of teeth clamp down on her ankle, pulling her under the water as a strong force knocked into her ribs, disorienting her. All at once, she felt a tremendous amount of pain as the third shark took hold of her right arm, tearing into it and releasing a red mist in the water around her. The pain was more than too much, so after expressing one final scream with the last of her breath, her consciousness started to fade. The last thing she remembered before waking up in the hospital was her husband's hands clutching her arms and pulling her up from the aquatic hell. According to Roger, Michelle was losing a large amount of blood, so the boat was rushing across the water as fast as it could, while the rest of the people on the boat helped tend to Michelle. The only reason Michelle is alive today is that among the group of tourists there was a single nurse who said that what happened in Sierra Leone was tragic, but it was the way nature worked. She fell into the shark's plate, and they responded instinctively with a majestic grace. Bird Rock stood tall like a natural colossus, its rough and jagged surface lending it an imposing air. The ocean currents crashed against this rocky facade, leaving behind a frothy white spray, which dissipated into the salty air. Surrounded by the cerulean expanse, the Bird Rock's rocky crags provided a living spot. It was their sanctuary, a world of vivid colors and untold mysteries that awaited them. As they swam deeper and deeper into the depths, the water slowly grew colder, and the reef came alive with a rainbow of colors. Fish in all shapes and sizes darted around them, and the sound of their breathing filled their ears. For them, the underwater world was their escape from the mundane, and they relished the chance to explore every nook and cranny. On a sunny day, the duo geared up with their diving gear, anticipation bubbling within them as they prepared to descend into the mysterious depths of the ocean. The water was crystal clear, revealing a stunning world beneath the surface. Justin and Damien exchanged excited glances, their eyes shining with the eagerness of explorers about to embark on a new adventure. With a splash, they submerged into the cool waters, the sensation of weightlessness enveloping them as they descended deeper into the abyss. The marine life greeted them with a mesmerizing display of colors, as if nature had painted a masterpiece just for them. Schools of fish danced around them, while corals swayed gracefully to an underwater symphony. As they swam further, Damien suddenly halted, his eyes widening in awe. Justin followed his gaze and gasped as he caught sight of a massive great white shark gliding towards them with stealthy grace. The shark's sleek body and rows of sharp teeth were a testament to its power and dominance in the underwater realm. Damien, an experienced diver, instinctively raised his dive knife, ready to defend himself. As Damien braced himself for a potential shark attack, he never expected it to happen so suddenly. In a flash of movement, the predator lunged at him with lightning speed, its razor-sharp teeth gnashing together with a deafening snap. Damien's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to dodge the beast's grip. But it was too late. The shark's powerful jaws clamped down on his leg with a bone-crushing force, sending a wave of excruciating pain through his body. As the water around them churned and frothed, Justin watched in horror as his friend fought for his life. Damien's face contorted in agony as he desperately tried to break free from the shark's grip. But the predator's unyielding hold only tightened with each passing moment. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled bravery, Damien drew his knife and plunged it into the shark's scaly hide, hoping to weaken its resolve. But the predator was relentless, attacking again and again with a ferocity that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. As the struggle continued, the water around them turned crimson with Damien's blood, a macabre painting that seemed to mirror the violence unfolding before their eyes. Despite the pain and fear, Damien refused to give up, battling the shark with every ounce of strength he had left. But with each passing moment, his strength began to ebb, and the predator's grip began to tighten. In that moment, it seemed as though all hope was lost, and Damien's fate was sealed. Justin's heart pounded at his chest as he moved to intervene, but as if drawn by the scent of blood, another massive great white shark appeared out of nowhere. The two sharks circled Damien, their dark eyes fixed on their prey with an intensity that sent chills down Justin's spine. Damien fought with all his might, but the sharks were merciless in their attack. With a swift motion, one of the sharks lunged at Damien's torso, its serrated teeth tearing into his flesh. The water turned crimson as Damien's blood mixed with the salt water, creating a gruesome scene that played out in slow motion before Justin's eyes. He screamed, the sound muffled by the water as he watched in horror, unable to comprehend the nightmare unfolding in front of him. The second shark joined in the attack, tearing into Damien from the other side, ripping his body apart with brutal force. Damien's screams were silenced as the sharks tore him apart like a rag doll, leaving only shreds of his wetsuit and a trail of blood in their wake. Justin's mind went blank, paralyzed with shock and horror at the sight of his best friend being devoured by two apex predators. He tried to reach Damien to save him, but the sharks were too fast, too furious, too ferocious. Justin's hands trembled, his entire body shaking with grief and helplessness. He could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears as he watched the gruesome spectacle unfold before him, unable to do anything to stop it. Minutes that felt like hours passed before the sharks finally retreated, leaving behind a trail of crimson in the water. Damien's lifeless body floated, disfigured and torn, a harrowing sight that Justin could never erase from his memory. The ocean that had once been a source of wonder and awe had turned into a nightmarish scene of carnage. In the shock and panic, Justin swam towards the shore with all his strength, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. The image of Damien being ripped apart by the two sharks replayed in his mind like a horror movie on a loop, each detail etched into his soul with searing pain. He reached the shore, stumbling onto the sand, his body and mind in a state of turmoil. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Justin was emotionally scarred for life. He suffered from vivid nightmares, reliving the gruesome scene of Damien's death every night. The local news was flooded with a story of how two sharks ripped a diver into pieces in front of his friend, reminding everybody of the volatile nature and ferocity of the creatures of the sea.
In the annals of California's history, a poignant and tragic tale unfolds, one that centers around a young boy named Caleb. He resided near the picturesque seaside area of California and in the heart of California. Caleb's eyes widened as he beheld the vast expanse of the ocean, a sight hitherto unseen by his eyes. His excitement was palpable as he approached the water's edge, the salt-kissed breeze filling his senses with wonder. Per their premeditated plan, they resolved to rent a small ship to venture further into the sea. Luck was on their side, for a suitable vessel was readily available. A few more people joined them, all drawn by the allure of the calm sea. Caleb and his grandfather took their designated positions on the ship. With Caleb's commotion and movement on board aroused the shark's curiosity, drawing it inexplicably to the ship. Panic rippled through the ship's occupants as the great white shark closed in on their vessel ominously. The shark's proximity brought about an abrupt imbalance that caused chaos on board. People, including Caleb, lost their footing and plummeted into the water below. A tableau of sheer horror unfolded as the shark, with its massive razor-sharp jaws, commenced a ruthless assault on those floundering in the water. Caleb was thrown into the churning water, surrounded by terrified fellow swimmers desperately attempting to escape the relentless predator. Caleb's voice joined the cacophony, filled with a haunting blend of terror and despair. He struggled valiantly to remain afloat, his eyes witnessing the gruesome spectacle of the shark's ruthless attacks. Caleb's grandfather remained powerless to intervene on the ship as the tragic events unfolded before his frantic eyes. Tears flowed freely down his cheeks as he was forced to witness the unthinkable loss of his beloved grandson. As minutes dragged into agonizing hours, the great white shark continued its relentless rampage, claiming the lives of one hapless victim after another. It was a catastrophic tragedy, with the ship's crew and other survivors rendered impotent in the face of the predator's ferocity. Ultimately, as the shark continued its savage assault, the ship turned back towards the relative safety of the seaside area. The once inviting and tranquil sea now bore the grisly stains of tragedy, tainted by the blood of its victims. News of this horrifying incident rapidly disseminated through local news channels, leaving the entire community profoundly shocked and grieving the loss of so many lives. The tragic tale of Caleb had ventured so close to the shore and exhibited such aggressive behavior. The findings of the investigation were both fascinating and alarming. It was discovered that the shark in question had been tagged and monitored for several years by researchers. Its journey had taken it on an unusual route closer to the shoreline due to changes in prey availability and water temperatures. Additionally, it was noted that the shark had displayed signs of stress and disorientation, possibly due to human activities in the area, such as boat traffic and pollution. This revelation prompted discussions about the impact of human activities on marine life and the delicate balance of ocean ecosystems. Caleb's tragic encounter with the great white shark was a wake-up call for the local community and authorities to look closer at their relationship with the sea and the need for responsible and sustainable practices. In the wake of the shark attack, several measures were implemented to enhance safety for those enjoying the coastal waters of California. These included increased monitoring of shark activity, improved public awareness campaigns about the presence of sharks in the area, and guidelines for responsible boating and swimming practices. Additionally, efforts were made to reduce pollution. The seaside, once a place of serene beauty and adventure, now carried a solemnity. and Imani couldn't help but smile as she gazed at the seemingly boundless horizon. However, life often has a way of weaving unexpected twists into the fabric of our dreams. Just as they reached the tranquil heart of the sea, a sinister presence stirred beneath the surface. A colossal white shark, a living embodiment of primal power, emerged from the depths with astonishing speed. Panic swept through the boat as passengers cried out in terror. The great white shark circled their vessel with an evil intent that sent shivers down their spines. It was a harrowing sight that no one on board had ever anticipated. The boat rocked violently as the shark continued its relentless assault. In the chaos that ensued, Imani, standing at the bow, lost her footing. In a heart-wrenching moment, she slipped into the frigid waters of the Pacific Ocean, her boyfriend watching in helpless horror. The great white shark, a monstrous predator, seized its opportunity. It captured Imani's body with lightning speed, pulling her beneath the waves in a merciless embrace. The sudden and horrific turn of events left her boyfriend, who was still on the boat, in a state of paralysis from shock. The other passengers frantically screamed for help as the shark's attack continued to rock the boat. The crew, composed of seasoned sailors, rushed to respond. It was a battle against time and nature. Nature fought to fend off the relentless predator and rescue those falling victim to its wrath. Eventually, the crew regained control of the boat and had planned together now lingered as painful reminders of the tragedy that had befallen them. The image of the great white shark and the anguish of that unexpected moment haunted his thoughts. The coastal town, which had once been a place of joyful memories and serene beauty, now held a darker spot in the hearts of those who had witnessed the tragedy. Once a symbol of boundless wonder, the sea had become a realm of unpredictable danger. In the wake of the devastating incident, the town mourned the loss of Imani and the innocence shattered on that fateful day. The great white shark that had appeared out of nowhere, the United States of America, stood as a beacon of fame and city's heart, marveling at its buildings' grandeur, each one steeped in history and legend. The sense of awe that washed over them left a lasting impression, and they shared stories of their day late into the night. In the days that followed, the group ventured farther afield, exploring the diverse landscapes that South Africa had to offer. They marveled at the majestic wildlife of the savanna, delighted in the vibrant colors of the local markets, and hiked through lush forests where the echoes of nature's symphony filled the air. One day, their wanderlust led them to a place and his girlfriend spotted a sign advertising water activities. Intrigued, they seized the opportunity to enjoy some time alone together. A spirit of adventure had always characterized their love, and the prospect of a water adventure seemed the ideal way to commemorate their relationship. With the decision made, Liam approached the rental booth and secured a small boat for their journey. The anticipation of setting out into the vast ocean alone with his girl. In the distance, a colossal white shark breached the surface with astonishing grace. The sight of the great white shark, a creature of primal power, sent shivers down their spines. Panic surged as the massive predator circled their small boat, its dark, unblinking eye fixated on them. Fear gripped Liam and his girlfriend, and their cries of terror filled the air. The world around them seemed to blur as the shark continued its ominous dance, drawing ever closer. Their voices reached the ears of their friends who had been enjoying the beach nearby. They returned to the shore. The relief that washed over them was palpable. After the terrifying encounter, they clung to one another. The specter of the great white shark, a symbol of nature's unpredictable power, in their hearts, the memory of that day served as a reminder that even in the most adventurous pursuits, there were forces greater than themselves, forces that could both terrify and inspire. They carried a lesson, a reminder to approach life's adventures with humility and respect for the mysteries beneath the surface. Expanse of South Africa's untamed east coast. The stage was set. The day had dawned with the promise of serenity, but it was a tranquility that masked the potential for treacherous beauty. The scent of salt hung heavy in the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of the cliffs that stood sentinel along the coast. As the ocean voyager sliced through the azure waters, the boat's hull sang a song of adventure, a harmony of creaking wood and lapping waves that resonated through the souls of its occupants. Seagulls, inquisitive sentinels of the coast, traced their movements overhead, their calls a symphony of freedom and anticipation. In the hours that passed, the sun danced with the sea, casting a luminous path of gold upon the water. James and Mark, kindred spirits, released their lines into the depths. Each launched a promise of what the ocean might reveal. The water, previously serene, began to tremble under an invisible force, creating ripples that wove intricate patterns on the surface. The cove, hidden from all but the most intrepid adventurers, held secrets that even the most seasoned sailors would hesitate to face. It was then, in that moment of tranquil foreboding, that a presence emerged from the depths, a titan of the sea adorned in stripes as dark as night. The tiger shark, with its eyes like bottomless voids, circled the ocean voyager. Its arrival marked a turning point, a dance of predator and prey. James and Mark, their hearts synchronized with the rhythm of the waves, shared a knowing look. Fear danced with fascination in their eyes.